holding a grudge is like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. Hey guys, Chris Dufala here. We're going to do another little solo episode today. Talk to you a little bit about forgiveness. And what does that mean, right? I'm not just going to talk about it from a practical standpoint, and I'm not going to talk about it from a biblical standpoint, although the ultimate forgiveness, if you're a person of faith, is, my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ died on the cross for my sins, which are many. So let's talk a little bit about forgiveness. The old saying is holding a grudge is like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. The reality is the poison is real and it shows up in your blood pressure. Okay. Forgiveness is not the same as forgetting, excusing, reconciling, or pretending it didn't happen. You have to define it in a clean way, and you want to release the right to keep collecting that debt. So why do people resist it? Me included, by the way. You feel like you're letting somebody win, right? You're forgiving them, and forgiveness is for you. I know sometimes it's for the other person, but at the end of the day, it's for you because you're carrying that baggage. Okay. Resentment gives you a false sense of control. Ask me now, I know. So as long as I was angry, the story was never over. Okay. Some people are more attached to being right than being free. I'm interested in peace, forgiveness, and freedom personally. So what are the benefits? In my case, they showed up in a physical way as well. So lowering the blood pressure, less chronic cortisol load, sleep. If you forgive and release all that shit at night before you go to bed, you have a little sleep routine. You just I pray, and I also recap the day. And but anything that went sideways that day, I tried to figure out what was good about it. What can I use that that was poor today, that something that went poorly today that I can use as gratitude? Can I learn from that? Physically also, less chronic pain and inflammation tied to sustained stress. So then there's the mental and emotional aspects, right? So you'll get a measurable drop in anxiety, depression, and hostility. I was early on in my big stressor, my divorce. I was all of those things. I was nowhere near acceptance. That was way over here. I was depressed. I had moments of hostility. I was manic. I mean, I was just not in a good place. It's difficult when you're in that place to understand how to get out of it. Also, what else does forgiveness do? So we're still talking about the benefits. It restores agency. You stop letting the person or people that hurt you, they don't get to set your mood. So, and then in a relational aspects, it stops the leak in your relationship. There's all kinds of unintended consequences that come along that can compound in a bad way in your relationship that maybe didn't even have anything to do with the initial effects. So you can also, and I think in my case, I don't have the whole picture genetically, family tree, so to speak. There's a lot of people that have been dead a long time, but for a lot of people, it breaks generational patterns. Your kids will see you handling something in a poor way, which unfortunately my kids have had a front row seat to that. So hopefully now they've seen the growth. It makes you someone that people can be honest with because they know that you can recover from a mistake that they may have made with you. Okay. Now, practical or maybe in business, grudges are expensive. You can lose deals, burn up referrals, employees that won't tell you bad news. Clear-headed decisions always beat retaliatory ones every single time. So I'm not sitting here in a virtuous manner telling you I've got it all together. I don't. As I've mentioned before, if you've ever watched any of these podcasts, you'll know that these are as much for me as they are for you. This is the big one that you don't want to skip, and that is self-forgiveness. And it's probably, at least in my case, it was the hardest. So most people are hardest on themselves, me included. The debt they can't collect is their own, right? So you can be accountable without being punishing of yourself, right? So accountability without self-punishment, you own it, you make it right where you can, if you can, and you move on. Next, shame. You've heard me talk about that on previous episodes. Shame is I am the mistake. Guilt is I made the mistake. And, only one is useful. You can feel guilty. You can be guilty because you're the one that made the mistake, but you are not the mistake you made. How do you actually do it? So you have to name the specific thing that you're seeking forgiveness for or getting forgiveness for. Vague forgiveness is not going to hold, right? You can't paint it with a broad brush. Feel the cost honestly. You can release what you won't, you cannot release what you won't admit hurt you. So you got to be honest with yourself. Decide it's a choice, not a feeling. the feeling flows sometimes months later. Write the letter that you never send. I've done that, and it is therapeutic. So get it all out. You write a letter, dear Joe, dear whatever, dear John. Write the letter, keep it, maybe reflect on it, and just don't even send it. Boundaries are important. So you have to set a boundary. Forgiveness is not access. You can forgive someone and never take their call again. Situation recently, an acquaintance of mine, I won't go into the details, but he wasn't even a friend. It was just an acquaintance. And I set a very clear boundary and said, hey, you got a lot going on personally and professionally. I'm not really interested in going to grab a coffee with you right now. Obviously, I put it in a very polite way, but some people that doesn't land well for them, and that's got everything to do with them and nothing to do with you. So, and expect to have to redo it, right? Forgiveness is often a daily decision. Okay, it's not a one-time event. You might feel a huge pressure lift when you make that decision to forgive someone or several people. You'll feel a lightness, but you have to continue to forgive. So I guess I'll end. This is going to be a very quick one, but I'll end with this. Who is living rent free in your head right now? So here's my challenge to you. Think about that. Name one person this week, including maybe yourself, that requires forgiveness, even if they don't think they require it. Okay. Even if they're not owning it, they're not doing anything. Let that shit go. Okay. You don't forgive to set them free. You forgive because you're tired of carrying it. Okay. So this is the Unpolished rebuild. I think it's appropriately named. The rebuild is never over, and it's never clean and sexy. It's very unpolished. So thanks for listening. I hope you got something out of it.